Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Your home for all content Lord of the Rings home. I haven't made a video in a minute here. I've been just trying to finish up some stuff for the end of the year for work, but I'm back to making videos. I'm hopefully going to have a number of them. I'm going to go back home for the holidays this Friday, but I'm hoping to have some sort of built up and saved up for when I'm gone for the week. That way I can continue uploading content more frequently. But this video, I want to give you my first impressions for Thorin. And you may be wondering, well, the Thorin event ended yesterday, and that was a very intentional choice that I'm doing it today. Basically, I think one of the main points of this video is I want to kind of showcase what Thorin is capable of doing, even at 5 stars, and then maybe you can make a decision at the end of the video whether you want to pursue him or not. I think it's probably a good idea. It's something I'm definitely going to be doing on my free-to-play account. So I'm going to be farming goblins and Thorin's company shards at the very least on my free-to-play account, but I want to show you what I have on my main account. So I'm going to show you a little bit of just kind of what I have Thorin's company-wise and Thorin, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing in Arena and how that's going, and then I'll show you some of my current raid scores, and then we'll go through some raid footage at the end here. Okay, so Thorin's company is it's at the bottom. Scroll all the way down. Okay, so Keely at the bottom here, he's pretty maxed. But I only have Thorin at 5 stars. I have Bomber at 6, Bilbo at 5. He's not really built up yet. I haven't really used Bilbo at all. Biffer and Feely at 7 stars. And so just out of the gate, one of my initial first impressions is that, much like Elrond, if you have components of his team that are higher star, him being 5 star doesn't really limit him that much, which is surprising because he is a DPS machine. And you would think, okay, well, you probably need the stars on him to maintain that. And you don't, as it turns out. You really don't. And that's a little bit surprising. He hits like a truck even at 5 stars. And I know he's only really going to get better at 7 stars. But having the team around him be 7 stars is obviously helpful for the things that I'm doing. Let's just get it out of the way. We'll talk a little bit about Arena. I don't have him on defense. I'm not quite sure. I'm using this timeout comp here. I'm not quite sure exactly what the top end people here. I'm only a Mithril 1 for Shard 1, right? You can see it's pretty much a lot of it is just these timeout comps or just your standard Elrond teams, right? I found that a 5-star Thorin isn't really cracking into 7-star Elrond teams sometimes. So like this comp right here, I didn't beat it today, but I beat a similar comp to this timeout team, where I use Feely, Keely, Thorin, Bomber, and Elrahir actually. And part of that is to deal with the fact that Keely just doesn't seem to actually do a whole lot of damage. But I would say it's not really a defensive team. I don't know how much Bilbo is going to help there. Obviously, if you have a 7-star Thorin, I think you are able to punch through some of these higher end teams. In some version of the comp, I'm not exactly sure what. Maybe Ethan makes an appearance again. Bomber's pretty good, but he's got some drawbacks as well. So, turns out a 5-star legendary I've won a few times, but it doesn't consistently beat a 7-star legendary team. So they're more equal in that sense than Thorin just being able to beat the crap out of Elrond at 7 stars. But let's talk about raids, which is, I think, more important than Arena. And let me go back to... Let's just go back to Chapter 1. And I will show you that, again, 5-star Thorin, he is G9, and all of his skills are maxed. My Bomber, not so much. He needs some more skills, but able to do 1 mil in Chapter 1 here. And then I've seen screenshots of people throwing in Rumel into this mix instead of Biffer, and then they had one, and then Gimli instead of Bomber. But I think you can put Bomber in there as well. Maybe you use Gimli, maybe use Rumel, and they got 1.5 mil in difficulty 4. So it's definitely some room for improvement here. The assists that you get from basically attacking somebody with Overwhelmed through, it's either his passive or his leadership, I never remember. That helps a lot, especially if Feely and Keely get it. then they're just hitting like 5 times in a row, and it turns out you are going to just get the bomb to drop right away. There's a little bit of a survivability issue, especially at 5 stars here, but once I can get 2-turn haste, 2-turn slow on Bomber, I think that will help alleviate it quite a bit. And then I should be getting Gandalf soon as well. So here's kind of what my thinking is. I will have one team like this. I probably won't have Bilbo in here, but probably something that looks like this as a 1.5 million team. This is, again, Chapter 1. My Rivendell doing 1.5 million, and then hopefully like a Lord Balin with Legolas, Gimli, Rumil, and Gandalf, and then taking advantage of that Eagle Eye spreading around, and hopefully getting 1.5 mil there as well. 3 teams at 1.5 mil in Chapter 1 would be terrific. So decent at Chapter 1. Chapter 2, though, is where he really, really shines. I'm going to show you my footage from last week when I unlocked him, and I didn't have Bomber, and I was able to get, 1.5 mil in difficulty 4. So maxed out difficulty 4 last week. Tried difficulty 5 this week. Was able to get 1.6 mil. I think if I get some more like higher level glyphs, and I get Bomber's skills maxed, and I think Bilbo will work a lot better here, maybe instead of Biffer. I'm not entirely sure. I'll mess around with it. I think I could max difficulty 5 with this team. That's how, in 5-star Thorin, maxing difficulty 5. Again, parts of this team are 7-star. Not everybody is, though. That's just how good he is. Even at 5-star, he's going to be able to max out difficulty 5 in Chapter 2, I think. I really, really think that. The DPS is just too strong. You don't even need the ability to take away his momentum stacks. I think Bilbo will give you the option to if you need it. Like once the cave troll starts resisting everything again, especially once he starts getting enraged stacks, then it becomes an issue. But you have so many different debuffs that you can put on with this team, and disrupted from Bomber being super key and important too, that you just have so many tools to control the cave troll. It's so good. Even at 5 stars, it's so good. I think there's this line that like Thorin's not going to be good when he comes back around because there's going to be some other team that just is better, and that might be the case. But again, I said this previously, against things that require DPS checks, this team is really, really great. And if we had more progression systems down the line, higher levels, higher gear tier, higher skill levels, whatever, this team is going to continue to evolve and get better because of the overwhelmed buff that he has from his leadership. It's just that good. It is so good. So you don't need, you do need to be able to land some Banes, kind of like Haradrim, right? So you need to have probably some focus. Right now, I guess I should talk about that. Let's go back and talk about it a little bit. In terms of glyphs, what I'm doing is... it's being slow. Come on, I need you to load. But basically, I'm doing Last Stand and Bloodlust. Once I get him to 7 stars, I will change this to 3 times Bloodlust. Even with 5 stars, he does hit very hard with his abilities and his basic. I mean, he just hits very hard. But once I'm 7 stars, I will do 3 times Bloodlust. I'm using Last Stand right now sort of just to give him an extra little cushion in case he needs it for survivability. And I have gone, again, because of 5 stars, I've gone 2 focus primaries down here. The 2 Adderall primaries, a little bit of Vinase, a little bit of Adderall, 1 of each. And he just needs it to be able to land marked. I think landing marked is pretty critical for his kit. And yeah, you just got to land marked. So I might even keep 2 focus primaries moving forward, just always on him, just to guarantee that, just so that people who are trying to be sneaky and put resistance primaries on their arena team or whatever, doesn't matter. He's focused out of the wazoo. So Last Stand is pretty common, I feel like, for a lot of my dwarf teams, especially my Thorin company. Last Stand and Bloodlust, pretty standard, I would say, combination. But Armor Piercer for Keely, but everybody else kind of doing that. Let's go back to the raids. So able to crack difficulty 5 this week. I'll show you difficulty 4 from last week when I initially unlocked him. Bomber's a big difference here. Bilbo will be a big difference here. Let's talk about Chapter 3. I basically don't use him at all in Chapter 3. I think this is where they have a rather large weakness. And I think it might be up to Bilbo to make sure that they can do something in chapter 3 and be good across all chapters of the raid, just like Rivendell are. But chapter 3 is definitely their biggest weakness. The reason I think Bilbo might be good is he can use his special 2, which he gets extra stamina for, right, to steal unbreakables, pass them out to people with the lowest amount of turn meter. This team doesn't have any cleanses. So you would think it would not be good. It's slow and it has no cleanses. You would think, oh yeah, not great in the raid, but it's got some ways to deal with that. We'll see how Bilbo turns out and whether he's vital for chapter 3. I think he will be. Is he enough? I'm not so sure. But I'm using other Thorin's company and dwarves in some other combination here. So it's not like a waste. Like I'm still using my Thorin's company dwarves to get difficulty 4 points for chapter 3, right? Let's talk about chapter 4, the current chapter. You probably already saw it. This is one of the easiest 900Ks I can run in chapter 4. Can't quite do difficulty 4 yet. I think that is a star issue for sure. Definitely feels like I'm stuck at difficulty 3 until I either really juice the glyphs on some of these guys or I get more stars. Interestingly, last week I also ran difficulty 3 and I didn't have Bomber, right? And so I did these 3, Thorin, Fili Kili, Lomian, and Legolas. And you may be wondering, that team doesn't have any cleanses. Well, how is it doing that? How is it doing that with no cleansers? And the answer is you just straight damage him and you just, doesn't matter that he has debuffs, that he puts debuffs out because you put marked on him so you can't miss. And you just hit him so hard, the Balrog so hard that it doesn't matter. You flinch him before, he goes into one of these forms. Bomber does help a little bit. There's some pieces still missing. I don't know how good Bilbo's going to be here. But definitely an easy team to get 900K. So good in 3 out of the 4 chapters for sure. Maybe all 4 chapters depending on Bilbo's performance. And again, I do have a 6-star Bomber, but this is a 5-star Thorin that is able to do this. And the DPS check that he's able to provide, the fact that he can just go the distance against any DPS check, I think this is a really, really solid and good team. So let's show you some footage. Let me go here to desktop. This is from my live stream from when I unlocked Thorin. Let me skip ahead. Okay, so basically your sort of opening salvo here is just putting as many debuffs as you can on him, and you maybe be like, oh, okay, well, he's gonna roar, he's gonna get rid of at least one of those, but if you can land all your debuffs, including Keely's disable, then he can't do that at all. So that's what I did here, and you can see we start to get some of those assists rolling in. I'm using Gimli as a 5th here. Definitely, I want to use all 5 Thorin's company when I can next week. Even with Bilbo, try difficulty 5, see if I can max 2 mil. So part of Thorin's leadership is that you get turn meter and you heal yourself. Like when you kill somebody that has overwhelmed, right? And it doesn't count when you either flinch the cave troll. No, it's flinch the Balrog and topple the cave troll. So you don't get that turn meter or healing, except in a case that maybe they didn't realize. If you are in flame or shadow form, I've only confirmed it for flame form, but I think it would also work for shadow form. And then you flinch the Balrog from that state, then I think you do get the heal and turn meter. That's at least what I was seeing. Maybe they've patched that since then, but that was what my initial testing was showing, was that in that specific instance, you do get the healing and you do get the turn meter. But basically, the name of the game here is I can slow with Biffer, and I can also now slow with Bomber and get that out pretty readily. And then I basically just take care of the ads and heal myself that way. Here, just do a little bit of that passive healing. Of course, you have Fili's heal, which is fine, but this is great. Him being able to do healing on his basic plus healing from killing the ads. It's just very, very nice. Now I'm just building up stacks of Overwhelmed again before he comes back up. Probably should have done his special 2 there just to make sure that I'm doubling those stacks of Overwhelmed. I really like to use that. Plus, then when he uses a skill, he gets that assist out to everybody. There you go. Now I did. And it's basically just setting yourself up. Okay, round 2. Was that the second topple or the first topple? I think that was the first topple. Key is just, all right, let's just get marked back on him. Didn't land. That's okay. Having Gimli here does help a decent amount. And again, something I think people don't realize is that, yeah, Bomber and Bilbo may not be farmable for that long by the time Thorin comes back around for a second time, but as it turns out, right, you don't need to be Thorin's company to take advantage of the Overwhelmed. Essentially, Thorin's company is responsible for getting the stacks of Overwhelmed, but it's not everybody who then hits the person with Overwhelmed is able to take advantage of that Overwhelmed. So this is especially useful when you're in like Arena, and I said I used Elra here in my Arena team sometimes, especially to try and break through those stall out teams. If you've got 10 stacks of Overwhelmed on somebody, and then you've got, you know, Elra here with Might using his special 2 into somebody with 10 stack, you just delete a person. It's just one free deletion. Go to jail, do not pass go, basically. So that's really, really useful and key. And I think maybe it's something I know for a fact is something people have not entirely realized. It's everybody takes advantage of the Overwhelmed. It's only Thorin's company members who can basically place the Overwhelmed here. So this is a second topple, and he only has 11 stacks of Enraged. That's how powerful this DPS check is. All right, and this is difficulty 4. So again, it's just killing the ads here is the name of the game. See if we can skip forward a little bit. Building up in Overwhelm stacks. Yep, I'm going to use a special 2 to double it. There we go. Again, notice no turn meter, no healing. That's me saying that and then stalling. I do have a lot of focus on my dwarves just to make sure I can land some of these debuffs. Except for his special one, I guess. At this point, it does, especially second after a second topple, yeah, he does start to resist a lot more. We're gonna land the slow and blind. That's incredible. So even though, so that special 2 doubles the stacks of Overwhelmed already on him. The reason I'm using it is, again, just because when you use skills, that gives the assists out to your team. Though apparently I haven't been using them, or they haven't been getting called. Yeah, sometimes Biffer just doesn't get called for the assist mechanics. It's weird. Like Biffer should have been called there, but he wasn't. Not exactly sure why that's the case. I think this maybe got fixed. I don't know. But either way, you can see I'm about to topple again. One more. There it is. And 1.5. Boom. Easy money. Okay. Let's do chapter 4 here. This is this week's run. So I'm using Lomian and Bomber. Last week I did Lomian and Legolas. Again, 0 cleansers on this team, which I think is very, very important. It's an automatic restart. I hate that the iconography here blocks out one of your characters, but I can lower this. Basically, it's an instant restart anytime Thorin immediately gets blinded, because you do want to make sure that you land that mark. That way, so ideally in this particular lineup, who you want blinded are the 3 other dwarves, not Thorin, not Lomian. Lomian goes first. You don't want to get the blinded there, although it's fine. And then you don't want blinded on Thorin. You land the marked, and then the other blinds don't matter, right? And so basically, man, if I get Bomber to have 2 turn haste, this is just going to be, I'm going to try difficulty 4. I don't know if I'm going to get it, but I really want to try it. The swipey swipe is really awful. That's actually something that does bring this team down, right? If you cannot clear that. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe just having like 1 cleanser in here just to save it, their cleanse specifically for when somebody gets swiped. Obviously the blind doesn't matter if you have them marked up, but the whole goal is get him to flinch, make sure you have his special 1 available when he comes out of flinch, do his special 1, get him marked so that the blind doesn't matter, and then do flinched again, right? So basically all I'm doing here is speeding everybody up again because I can't land slow on him while he's flinched, and Bomber seems to only go while he is flinched. Does the whip. See if we can land exposed. We can't. They do love going after Bomber. The reason I use disable or try to use disable here is one, Keely feels like he hits like a wet noodle on his basic, but also disable means he can't swipe at somebody. So here I do get a stack, but even then, after 2 flinches, I'm still only at 8 stacks of shadow form, which is crazy. Then if I need a little top off, you've got Keely. This is where things start to go a little bit haywire. So here comes flame form. This is where Lomian actually does come into hand, is useful. Am I going to take him out here? All right, we'll see if they fix the turn meter thing. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Oh, I think a Thorin's company member has to be the one that does the kill. Anyway, that's, yeah, maybe a little bit of deep cut knowledge. You can see already, right? He got into flame form once, and he's got 5 shadow stacks. 10 now because he used his swipe. That's insane. You don't use up any of your other cleansers. So basically what my plan is, right, I have Rivendell who can do very well. And then now I've got Thorin team who can do very, very well. Basically, I got 3 900k point teams in difficulty in Chapter 4 now. I might try difficulty 4 with my Rivendell, but either way, I've got like a Ballin dwarf team that doesn't use any of these dwarves. I have a my Rivendell team with Naramiri, and then now I've got Thorin. It's really, they're so good. I don't know how else to emphasize it. That's kind of what I want to leave you with, is like 3-4 months from now, when Thorin is rerun, we are still going to be having, we're still going to be in this raid, I think. I don't think we're going to have a new raid in like 3 months, 4 months time, because they just finished this one. I think if we're going to see a new raid, it's going to be the end of next year, or, quarter 3, quarter 4 next year. But definitely not before Thorin reruns. And he's going to be able to do very, very well. Teams that do well in Chapter 4 are sort of hard to come by. We know that Ballin does well. We know that Rivendell does well. Another team you might not be aware of is the Dol Guldur 3, do very well with T-Beb and Bekaloo. You do have to have the stars on them, though, at least the DG folks, to make sure that that works decently well. Something I've been working on as well is getting those people up. And then you have 4 teams, but there's still not like 5 solid teams for this chapter, I would say. There's maybe some other teams. That's not true, actually. Rohan 3 with Merry and Pippin actually can get 900k as well. So this is kind of, Thorin's team seemed like kind of like a 5th team that was able to do very, very well here. And again, no cleansers. It's just because it's a straight DPS check. So my guess is difficulty 4 is on the table for a team like this, especially if they got a little bit higher stars, a little bit higher glyphs. And I'm not sure exactly what Bilbo's going to bring to the table for this particular chapter. He still might be okay and good. The buffs he can give back are few and far, but I guess he can throw back expose, I suppose. But like, you can't blind the Balrog, and you can't put burn on the Balrog. And there's not a lot of buffs you can steal except when he goes into shadow form, I guess, which might be useful. I don't know. I'm not convinced Bilbo is as useful. I think he's probably more useful for in Chapter 2 specifically, and maybe some PvP settings. But other than that, I hope this was sort of illuminating in the usefulness of Thorin. He's good. He's a good legendary, and I feel like he actually fits into the ecosystem very well. It wasn't like a... I don't know how else to describe it. He's just... I was worried it was going to be too PvP focused and wouldn't have any viability in raids, in which case people were like, why would you do that? Turns out he's got a lot of viability in raids. This is a great raid team, and you can use the components of Thorin's company in many other ways, I think. And so I think it's worth starting to farm goblins and worth starting to farm Thorin's company now. I'm doing it on my free-to-play account. I'm going to continue doing it on my main account so I can get 7-star, obviously. But yeah, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Take it easy.